Hey, hello everybody. Welcome, welcome. My name is Eric Edmeades, and I will be hosting this masterclass, and I am really excited about it. This is one of my absolute favorite topics in the world to share with people for a whole lot of reasons. So, welcome from all around the world. I've seen people in from Germany, from the United States, from India, from Finland. I mean, we're talking about quite a global group here. So, welcome, welcome. I'm right now coming to you live from the Dominican Republic where I live, and we're going to be having some fun. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background on, I know some of you are probably quite familiar with me, and there's probably some of you who have never come across me before at all. And so I thought I'd share a little bit of background about where I've come from and why I'm teaching this masterclass and why I want to share this with you today. My background is that largely I don't have a background as a speaker. I have a background as an entrepreneur. My background has really been about business. I started my first business in 1997 in the United Kingdom. And that business was focused on mobile computing and wireless networking, really exciting, fun stuff. And I sold that business. And after that, ended up going on a worldwide speaking tour and speaking about business and just kind of going from city to city on this accidental speaking tour. And I'll share a little bit more about that later. But I also want to share that at that time that I was running my business and for the years before that, I was absolutely terrified of public speaking to the point that it would make me physically feel sick. And so I'm going to share with you a little bit of the journey of how I went from there to being in a place today where I've spoken really all over the world. And then I really want to be clear about why I'm sharing this with you. I know what an incredible gift it was in my life to overcome my concerns about public speaking and then to develop effective public speaking skills. It has been an unbelievable gift that just keeps on giving. If I look at my life today, at the quality of my life, the quality of the people I have in my life, the quality of the opportunities that exist around me, the places I've been to visit, the 50 some odd countries that I visited around the world, when I look at the sum total of my life, and I think to myself, what if I could go back and talk to the 19, 20, 21, 25-year-old me that was so terrified of public speaking, saying, look, you just need to overcome this one skill and all this stuff will follow. That 25-year-old would never have believed me. And that's because my fear of public speaking was so pervasive that it didn't simply prevent me from wanting to stand up in front of a room, but it made it difficult for me to talk to a camera. It made it difficult for me to even walk into a room full of strangers. It made it challenging for me if I had to make a court appearance in business. In every possible way, my reluctance, my nervousness about communicating and speaking, combined with my lack of skills, just was holding me back. And so when I got through that, when I overcame that, I welcomed an absolutely new level of living, a new level of existence. And so I want to share that with you. And it's one of the great privileges that I have in my life that I get to share this with people because I want to suggest to you that one of the most valuable, most powerful skills you could end up with in life is that of effective communication. I think that our current school system largely doesn't take that into account. In fact, I would put to you that if you've got a little bit of nervousness about public speaking, that may even be a side effect of a badly deployed education system at times. The way public speaking is encouraged in school is a way of building fear into people and locking it into them so that they have a hard time overcoming it. And so having worked with thousands of people on this very topic, I know that many people come back to me and say, hey, you know what? I've really attributed my fear to this moment in school. And so I really enjoy giving this gift to people, both about sharing with them how they can become really much more comfortable sharing their stories, sharing their message, and also how they can become more effective at it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I hope you're excited about that. And I want to encourage you to be engaged, to really be engaged. And, I want to encourage you to be engaged because, frankly, I want you to get the most you can out of this masterclass. Look, I know these days there are all these masterclasses and webinars and things that are being offered, and generally there's a lot more pitch than value. And I think at this point, if you know me fairly well, it's not like that. This will be all about value. And so I want to give you some examples of how you can get the most value from this. one of the things I want to share with you is that really learn everything we discussed today with the idea that you're going to teach it one day. Really learn it as though you're going to teach it one day. And then the other side of it is be engaged during the class. Be engaged during the class, because the more engaged you are, the more you activate that part of your mind that's going to want to remember these things so you can apply them when you're creating your next talk or your next presentation or preparing to record your next video. So to encourage your engagement, we're going to be giving away 5 Business Freedom water bottles. These water bottles are very cool. You definitely want to have one because you need to stay hydrated anyway. And matter of fact, that's one of the absolute keys to being a phenomenal speaker, is staying hydrated. And so we're going to be giving away 5 water bottles based on your engagement in the chat. And so if I ask you a question, answer that question in the chat. If you have a question, throw that question into the chat, and let's get a bunch of engagement going so that we can help you. Thank you very much, I'm not sure who said that. Dace or somebody. I think the sound is a little low. Tell me if that is better. I hope that that is better. And all right, so with that in mind, let's make sure that you're in the right place. Let's make sure you're in the right place. You are in the right place if there's any part of you that would like to become a more confident and better public speaker. You're in the right place if you feel like you have stories that you want to tell, but you're not really sure how to tell them, where to tell them, how to build them. You're in the right place if speaking in front of a large audience, or frankly, any size of audience, gives you anything other than excitement. If you have any nervousness or fear, you're definitely in the right place. If you're a business owner, you are in the right place. This is the #1 skill that you need to succeed in business. Being able to communicate your message clearly is more valuable, I think, than just about any other skill that you could learn in business. So if you're in business, you're in the right place. Same thing if you're a manager or a C-suite executive in a company, if you're CEO. If you are a coach, or if you're working with people on mindset, then this is one of the most valuable skills you could possibly have, combined with empathy. I think if you can combine empathy with really great communication and really great storytelling skills, totally change your life. If you are an author and you want to get a book out there, that's going to be really incredible. Bottom line is, if you want to become a better communicator, you are in the right place. So here's some of the things that we're going to be covering. We're going to be talking a little bit about the speaking industry and what the trends that are going there and the different types of speaking there are. We're going to be talking about some of the assumptions people make that get in the way of them becoming a speaker. In other words, some of the assumptions and beliefs that hold people back. We're going to talk about why storytelling is such an important feature of effective speaking, and then how you can use them to create really solid influence in any area or endeavor. We're going to talk about how to turn your fear into confidence, and I'm going to show you, in fact, how nervousness of public speaking is actually one of the greatest skills you can have once you realize that it's not actually nervousness, that it's another emotion, and we're going to talk about that. And we're going to definitely discuss how you can use speaking to promote your product, your business, your service, your agenda. We're going to share with you one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're getting ready to speak in front of an audience and how to avoid it. And we're going to talk to you about the next steps you can take to become a really successful, influential speaker. Now, again, because this is a genuine masterclass with really solid value and things that we want to share with you, there is a worksheet that we've given you, and so that was sent out to you by email. And if you didn't get it by email, or if you don't have it in front of you, or if you didn't print it off, I highly recommend having it ready to go. And with that in mind, our team will post a link to the worksheet. Matter of fact, can you put that slide back up just so everybody knows what it looks like? They're going to give you a link to the worksheet for the masterclass, and they're going to put that in the. So there you go. Excellent. Yes, Jen, I know I've got this eclectic, psychedelic, changing background because of some technical issue with the camera. I hope you enjoy it. So, all right. So with that in mind, here's some general information about the masterclass. It's going to run for about 90 minutes, and then we're going to have some Q&A. We're going to have some open Q&A, and it's basically AMA about speaking. Ask me anything about speaking, about my life as a speaker, about your life as a speaker, anything at all about speaking. And you can also write those questions into the chat. My team will be collecting them to make sure that I get to them. And also that saves me answering the same question 2 and 3 and 4 times, because they will I capture them for us. We're going to yeah, you definitely want to use your masterclass worksheet and go through. When I give you a few minutes, I will at moments say, stop, do this, and fill it out on your sheet. If you notice any like little whispers that come up, little objections, little beliefs, little things that get in the way, type them into the chat. Let's see what we can unpack and get done for you. And then, of course, stick around at the end, and I'll share some details with you about how you can work with me personally to really take your presenting skills to another level. And some of you are going to have some friends that are going to need to see this masterclass and they missed it. And so I want you to know that for you and those friends of yours, this masterclass will be available. The recording of it will be available for 48 hours after the recording. So there we go. General information that you need to have. You've got your worksheet. We're moving on to that. And so let's jump in. So let's just talk a little bit about influence. And I want to make a very clear statement right now that one of the deepest and most impactful ways of creating influence is through storytelling. And that's because long before there was Netflix, long before there was television, long before there was radio, there was us sitting around fires telling stories. And in fact, that's how the wisdom from generation to generation was passed on. In a real sense, the idea of sort of professional public speaking, people speaking to get an agenda across, is at least a 2,500-year-old profession. And I might even argue that public speaking might be the oldest profession in the world. And what I mean by that is that for really about 1.2 million years that people have had fire, I think our ancestors sat around and told stories. And so while technology has changed, and while now we can have an audience and we can stand on stage, or we can be recording a video and reach hundreds of thousands or millions of people, the general idea of storytelling is something that is deeply ingrained and deeply programmed into the human psyche. And that's one of the reasons that it's so effective, because we evolved a desire to learn through storytelling and an ability to learn through storytelling. And so it's an incredibly important feature. I'll put a question to you. Matter of fact, I'd love this question in the chat area. How many of you have at least one teacher that you still to this day remember that teacher fondly, that you really are like, you would love to, if you could go and have lunch with that teacher, you probably would. And you can maybe even remember some of the lessons they taught you. This one teacher had an impact on your life. How many of you had at least one teacher like that? And then here's the next part of that question. Look at this. We even, let's give a shout out to Michael Singer, an obviously outstanding teacher. I'll tell you, mine was Jan Kolczynski. And I had many others. I was lucky. Now, let me ask you, and look at this. A few of you said several teachers. Fantastic. Some don't. And I find that incredibly sad. And that's because, frankly, teachers aren't taught this skill. And so the ones that kind of brought it to the game, they stand out. Now, here's my next question. Those of you who do have at least one that you remember like that, were they a storyteller? And I'm going to suggest to you that in the vast majority of cases, yes, they were. And that's what made them phenomenal teachers. So if you really want to figure out how to inform and influence and really educate and create lasting impression, then it is about storytelling and it is about effective speaking. So here's where we are today. The speaking industry is fascinating and it continues to grow. Things like YouTube, TED Talks, the desire for people, now that we're in this very electronic connected world, there's a really strong desire for people to spend more time in person. Guys, I'm curious, how many of you, look, it's great. You can get all kinds of education just like this across a live broadcast or a webinar or a masterclass or a video training. But come on, how many of you have a craving for people? How many of you want to spend time with people? And so I'm curious about that, but we know that that's what's creating a demand for really great conferences and really great coaching. And so I want to put to you that there's some seriously increased demand for speaking. And sorry, this is a little unfair, but women, you need to know that there's a much higher demand even and growing demand for female speakers. I can't begin to tell you the number of times that I've been getting involved with helping promote a conference, or I've been booked early as one of the speakers at the conference. And almost every single time they come to go, Eric, do you know a female speaker that could speak to this topic at this conference? Because they're tired of posters of conferences that just all have men on them. And by the way, I don't want to suggest it's that they've suddenly become enlightened feminists or anything. You know why they're tired of it? Because their audiences are asking for it. And so there's definitely a big opportunity as the speaking industry continues to grow. So here's my question for you. What is your definition of a speaker? What is your definition of a speaker? And maybe even spice that up a little bit. What is your definition of an effective speaker? I'm curious to know how you determine when you're seeing an effective speaker. What is your definition? And this is something that you put on your on the Masterclass worksheet that we've given you. You'll see that that is item number 1 on the worksheet. What is your definition of speaker? Plus, I'd love for some of you to drop your comments right into, remember, engagement equals water bottles. So a little ethical incentive there. So let's see, what do we got here? Confident storyteller, excellent. Thank you, Elle. We've got a person who has something to say from personal experience. Yeah, impact, authenticity, charisma. A storyteller with great contact. There you go. I mean, you can see some really, really excellent answers there as to what a great speaker is. How about this as item number 2 on your sheet? What are 3 things you believe you need to start as a speaker? Or if you are already a speaker, what are 3 things that you think you need to take yourself to the next level as a speaker? Again, put that as item number 2 on your worksheet. Write those down. Get engaged, guys. Actually write it down. But once you've written it down, I'd love to hear in the chat, what are 3 things you think a person needs to start as a speaker? Or if you're already a speaker, what are 3 things you need to take yourself to another level as a really effective and successful speaker? Let's see here. Knowledge, confidence, and training. Yep, I think that that's absolutely true. Loving the topic, crucial. That's a great answer. Real stories. Let's see here. Somebody who can convey a message in simple terms with wit and great ease. I think that's a fabulous quote. The best training I can find, Peter, thank you. Very nice plug. I appreciate that. That's very good. And you will feel that way at the end as well, I guarantee you. Humor. Streamlined message, control of physiology. Yes, that's true. Connection with the audience, eye contact. These are excellent answers, you guys. Really, really good stuff. So let's talk about some of the false assumptions people make. And when I say people, I mean me and a lot of other people. But these are some of the assumptions I made and that many people make. So, of course, you need to be a dynamic extrovert to be a speaker. If that was true, how many of you guys are just, it's, you know, too bad for me. If you have to be a dynamic extrovert to a speaker, how many of you would just have to give up? Because I'm not. I've never been an extrovert. And let me tell you something right now. Yeah, I see you're a bunch of you are with me. You know, you're out. You're an introvert. If you have to be a dynamic extrovert to a speaker, maybe you should be an author who never speaks about it. No, let me tell you right now that if you're even the tiniest bit introverted, being a speaker is the ultimate life hack. It's the ultimate life hack. Look, if I go to a networking event, I'm fairly introverted. I'm not likely to meet a lot of people. But if I get booked to speak on the main stage in front of a couple thousand people, I end up meeting hundreds of people. And I end up getting to make a really deep and lasting impression on them in a way that I couldn't even make, even if I was an extrovert out shaking hands. And so you do not need to be an extrovert to be a speaker. I would put to you that many of the very best speakers that I have ever come to know in the world, many of whom are really great friends of mine, are fundamentally introverted. And in fact, it's one of the reasons that they are so successful as a speaker. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And by the way, extroverts can do well on stage absolutely as well. I'm just saying there's nothing exclusive about that. You need to have here's another assumption. I need to have a world-changing topic to share. I need to, no. Okay. You need to have the thing that you're passionate about. You need to have the knowledge that other people need to know. And really, you just need to have life experience. That's all you need to have. And if you're like over 6 years old, you've begun accumulating life experience. How about this? I need to have a particular appearance. No. Everybody has this thing of like, if I just look like that. Look, if you grew up like me with brown hair, darker skin, and dark eyes, then you wish you had blonde hair and blue eyes. Come on, how many of you ever had that? You just wish that you were the other version. Anybody have a little bit of that? If you're brown eyes, you wish you had blue eyes. If you have blue eyes, you wish you had brown eyes. This is a funny thing about us. And so we often see other people and go, hey, you know what? I need to look a particular way to make this happen. Well, you know what? I've seen people that are, let's say very aesthetically gifted that have done very well as speakers. And I've seen people on the other end of the spectrum that, that have had really tragic accidents that have made them frankly difficult to look at because you can see the pain that they've been through and everybody in the middle. So no, that's not true. How about this? Here's another assumption a lot of people have is, I just don't have what it takes. Let me let you know something clearly right now. You do have what it takes. I know that because I was absolutely certain that I didn't have what it took. But the fact is that if you are alive, if you are able to speak, If you have any memory of your life of any kind, you have what it takes. When I stand up in front of any audience, whether it's 22,000 or 22,000, when I stand up in front of an audience, here's what I know, is that any one of the people in the audience could be on the stage sharing stories, which I would enjoy if they simply had the skill to do it. Because every single human being has perspectives, experiences, and lessons that are of value to other human beings. And so, no, I want to be very clear. You do have what it takes. Your education system might have taught you that you don't. You might have had an overbearing parent or relative that told you to keep quiet, or that children should be seen and not heard. And so you may have some beliefs on top of what it takes. But once we can clear those away, you will find that you have absolutely what it takes. And this is the big one. But I'll never overcome my stage fright. You know what? I don't care if you are a little bit nervous or abject terrified. You absolutely can overcome it. You will. There's no question about it. It is easy to overcome it. And so these assumptions hold people back, and they absolutely should not. Here's what you do need. What you do need to succeed in this space is you need passion and perseverance. How many of you have passion? I'm curious. And how many of you, when you feel passionate about something, feel a natural sense of perseverance? I'm passionate about this, and I'm going to push and make it happen. And you know what? Here's another thing. What do you have passion about? I'm curious. So another issue is you need to have a positive yes mindset. You need to be able to you need to be able to roll with the punches. Somebody points out that my screen is flickering and stuff like that. Yeah, it is. I wish that it wasn't. But in the end, I just decided to make a joke of it and move on. The fact is that in order to be a really effective speaker, you need to know that a lot of times you're going to be speaking in live situations. Sure, there's times when you go into a studio and you can aim for some perfection. You can record the perfect talk and all that kind of stuff. But what audiences really want is authenticity. What they really want is you, the real you. And so what that means is you're very often going to find yourself in a live environment when your slides aren't going to work and the lighting's going to go wrong and the microphone's not going to happen and somebody's going to say something from the audience, or any number of things are going to go wrong. And having a positive, optimistic mindset that allows you to roll with the punches, that allows you to know that everything is happening for you and not to you, makes a big difference as a speaker. You need the courage to take the first step and then to keep going. In my case, it was really, really simple. I was so terrified, but I continued to push. Oh, and by the way, here's what I'd like to know. On a scale of 1 to 10, 0 to 10, 0 is no nerves at all. You have no nerves at all in any circumstance. Anyone can be in the audience, any period of time, any size of audience. You have no nerves, then you're a 0. And 10, you feel like you are going to vomit, or you maybe even do vomit in preparation for a talk. Where are you on that scale? That's what I'd like to know. Where are you on that scale? 8, 3, 7, 9, 9, 9, 9, 8, 7. Hey, we've got a 0. Well done. Debbie's at a 15, right? Okay, well, I want to tell you, I was at about a 437 on the scale. It was absolutely terrifying for me. But what I want you all to know, anybody who answered anything above 0, you wouldn't be nervous about it if you didn't want to do it. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if you're in a plane with a bunch of people that are skydiving and you're not planning to skydive, you don't feel nervous. You only feel nervous if you're planning to skydive. And so the reason you've got nervousness or fear about it is because deep inside you, you want to get your story out. Is that true? Let me know if that's true. Come on. Does that sound like common sense? Does that sound real? Let me know. All right. Yeah, there you go. That's right. You're nervous because you care. If you had no desire to get your story out there, what would you be nervous about? Exactly. So here's the other thing, is that storytelling is ultimately the best form of marketing in the world. It really is. And I'm going to give you a very short reason for that, is that of all the different types of marketing there are, some of you may have seen me speaking about this on Facebook Live yesterday, but there's internet marketing, there's telemarketing, there's direct mail, there's television, magazine, radio, newspaper. There's all kinds of traditional and new forms of marketing, but none of them are more effective than face-to-face contact. None of them are more effective than face-to-face contact, ever. The problem with face-to-face contact is that it's difficult to do a lot of it in one day. And so face-to-face contact is even better, because now what's happening is that you can have that same 1 hour of deep connection with one person, but you can have it with 10 people or 10,000 people. But now, to really take it to another level, what you need to understand is that memory is only ever anchored into place by feelings, by emotion. And so if you want your clients to remember you and take action, then you need to get them to feel. And the very best you're going to do that is by telling really effective stories. You know, I got a really powerful example of this sitting around the fire once with the Hadza Bushmen in East Africa. In fact, on the slide you've got there, there's a picture of me getting ready to do a bit of an archery competition with them. And I want to tell you that many, many nights I've sat around the fire with them, and they have the most beautiful percussive language. They speak with these clicky sounds, and I'm listening to them. And I remember the very first time I sat around the fire with them, and I asked my guide, I said to him, "What are they talking about?" And he said, "They're just telling stories. All night long, they're telling stories. And many times they're telling the same story they told last night. They're just telling stories about the great hunting trip, about the, you know, what's going on in the next village. They're telling all kinds of stories, and they're teaching through these stories." And so, as I said to you earlier, we've had like hundreds of thousands of years of evolving through this storytelling tradition. And that's why stories are so powerful for us today. Remember, emotions are the glue that cause the memory to stick. And so, look, how many of you have ever been to a conference where there were completely forgettable speakers? Like they're on the stage and you're having a hard time even paying attention to them. And if somebody were to ask you an hour later what they were even speaking about, you might know the topic, but you wouldn't remember a damn thing. And that's why it was so important to take notes. How many have been to that conference? There you go. Lots of you. You know what was really fascinating is I was sitting having this conversation with some clients just now. I was in Thailand at a BNI conference, Business Networking International, and I was at their conference speaking for a bunch of their global leaders. And we were talking about this very principle. And one of the people, I was saying, yeah, and like, look, when I dive in to tell a story, my idea is I want to really stimulate people. I want them to remember. I want them to take action. I want them to change. And I started saying, hey, for example, there was this one time, and I started sharing a story, and one of the people at the table jumped in and said, "Oh my God, that's the time that you did this and you were at this place and that person was there." And I was like, wow, you know that story? When did you hear it? 3 years ago. 3 years ago. And yet we can walk out of a conference and not remember what the speaker was talking about 15 minutes ago. Story is the power of memory, influence, and action taking. Absolutely no question about it. You want to boost your business, you want to sell your book, you want to raise money for your charity, you want to run for political office. This is the skill you absolutely need to have. And, you know, it's funny because a lot of times, this is really funny. People will often come to our 5-day speaking academy program, and they'll arrive there and they'll go, "But I have no stories. I don't have any stories." Well, let me tell you that at some point, by about the end of day 2, they realize that they have hundreds of stories. They just didn't know it. And so what we do is we show them how to pull those stories out of themselves, how to tell them really effectively, how to catalog them so that somebody can say, "Hey, could you go get a talk right now, a 30-minute talk?" And they immediately know, oh, here are the 5 stories I'm going to tell. I'm going to tell these stories to make these points. You all, every one of you, has an inventory of life experiences that are valuable to other people. But here's the crazy thing. You know that old expression, beauty is in the eye of the beholder? I'm not sure that that's always true. I often think that ambivalence is in the eye of the beholder. In other words, when we have something, we tend to not think it's all that valuable because we already have it. But you, right now, you have life experiences that would be valuable to me. Isn't it true? Like you, there are stories you could share that could absolutely improve the quality of my life. Every single person has these. The challenge is that a lot of times because we haven't been taught the skill, because we haven't been shown the skill, we haven't been recording our life experiences as stories. And so we don't know that we have them. You definitely have them. And then here's the other side, is that when you begin to realize the power of your stories and you get really effective at remembering them and telling them correctly, that in itself will largely eliminate your fear of public speaking. Because one of the big fears is not knowing what to say and not being sure how the audience will react to it. And once you've understood that, once you've handled that, it changes a lot. In fact, speaking of fear, let's talk about that. You know the old cliched study. I think I talked about it on Facebook Live yesterday. There's that old cliched survey that was done, and they polled Americans and said, you know, what are your top fears? And if I remember correctly, the number one fear was public speaking. The number 2 fear was walking into a room full of strangers, and the number 3 fear, guys, was death. Okay, so for Americans, death. more terrifying than public speaking, which makes me feel like the most terrifying death you can have would be death by public speaking. So no, we don't want to live that way. But again, I want to point out to you that I lived that way. I was so afraid of public speaking that if you called me on a Monday and said, Eric, can you come speak at my event on Friday? I would say, no. And then I would feel nauseous to the point of having a hard time holding my food down or being able to eat right up until Friday. And then after your event, which I said no to, was over, I would start to feel better. Do you know why I was scared that entire time? Because there was some part of me inside that wanted to change its mind. The stronger your fear, the more powerful the message is that you want to get out to the world. You know that that's true. And I will tell you that I went from this abject terror position to, I've been in a position now where I've spoken in over 26 countries around the world. I've shared the stage with Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, President Bill. In fact, about 2 years ago, I had to follow President Bill Clinton on a Friday in London, England. And then immediately the next morning, I had to follow Tony Robbins, right? Was I nervous? Not in the least. I was excited. And that's a really important point. I'm now at the stage where I don't care if there's 5 people in the audience or if there's 5,000 or 50,000 people. I don't have any nerves because I know what I'm going to go out there and do. I've prepared for it. And I've changed some of the mental things that were going on inside me. And so I've moved past the fear, and I want to help you to be able to do the same thing. So the question is it really possible to do it? I mean, fear is such a pervasively powerful feeling that when you're in it, it feels like it's going to last forever. Isn't it true? So the question is it really possible to overcome it? Yes, categorically and absolutely. First of all, I'm your first case study. I was, however terrified you think you are, I was at least as terrified of you as you, if not more. And of course, I haven't had the slightest, you know, people always say, you should learn to get your butterflies to fly in formation. I'm like, hell no, I eat butterflies for breakfast. I don't even have, you know, there's no butterflies in there. You know what I have? Excitement. And you know, and of course I could give you hours and hours of case studies from clients, but here's a really good example. And by the way, we're going to give you a link afterward where you can go and see a video of this case study. But this is Ola. Ola is one of our clients for our 5-day speaking academy. And she was just completely not okay with speaking, particularly speaking on camera. And she got to a place where she absolutely felt comfortable about it. She went and did a big Mind Valley event last year, gave an incredibly compelling talk, and got a huge standing ovation. And so it's had a huge impact on her personally, but also on her profession. And so that's a really, you know, it is absolutely something that can be overcome. In fact, another one of Ola's coworkers is another friend of mine, Kadi. She was very much in the same boat. She would not be very happy to lead a team leader meeting with 3 or 4 people in the room, where now she's like organizing month-long seminar programs, standing on stage, creating compelling presentations, and able to do it on a moment's notice. In fact, I'll share with you that at one event where she was at our speaking academy, there was an exercise where I was going to randomly pick somebody without any preparation to just walk on stage and do a presentation. Well, I remember this was a woman who didn't want to lead a team leader meeting with 5 people in the room. And I handed her the microphone with no notice of any kind. And she walked up on stage and gave an instant presentation and brought the audience to tears with a compelling and important story. So yes, absolutely can be overcome. Another great story, Gotham. Gotham's an incredible guy. Now, I love Gotham a great deal. He's fantastic. And he did our Speaking Academy program back in 2017. He then went on to give a TEDx talk. It's gone on to get him all kinds of invites for speaking tours and stuff. But there's a little side story that he told me, which I thought was fantastic. One of the things that I'm always saying, I said this to you earlier, is that really, to be a really great speaker, you need to have a go with the flow kind of attitude. You need to understand that things are going to go wrong, and then you need to be able to roll with them. You need to be able to not only roll with them, but even utilize them and make them work. And one example of that is you should never need your slides. Yes, slides can be really powerful. I'm using them right now. Slides can be powerful, but you should never need them, not ever. And this is something I ingrained deeply. Well, you know what? One of his first big talks, it may even have been the first big talk that he was doing after the Speaking Academy. He walked and he had slides prepared, walked up. I think it might even have been this TEDx talk. I'll have to check with him. But he walked up onto the stage and he looked down at the monitor that shows where the slides are, and there was nothing there. And he was going on in 5, 4 slides. Where are the slides? 3, 2, No slides. One, boom. He began and he delivered an outstanding presentation and didn't need his slides at all. Bear in mind that only a month before, he wasn't comfortable at all. So you see, there's a massive change here. And so it is absolutely possible, no question. So let's talk about how they did it. Well, the first thing is they decided they wanted to. So here's what I want to know. For those of you who have fear of speaking, for those of you who have fear of public speaking, getting up in front of an audience, here's my question for you. Do you want to overcome it? How badly do you want to overcome it? 1, I kind of want to overcome it. 10, I am absolutely committed. I absolutely want to overcome it. Let me know. Where are you? Good. 10 times 10. 9, 8. I'll accept those. 10, 10, 10. Good. That's the first thing. You make the decision, I'm going to overcome this. That's the first step. Okay. Then the next thing is that they then need to learn the steps required to turn fear to their advantage. I'll give you one of those right now. Here's a funny thing, that if I told you I had a guy sitting right here beside me and he was depressed, would you be able to tell me roughly what his physiology looked like? Slumped forward, crunched over, sad looking face and so on. If I told you I had somebody over here that was angry, you'd be able to tell me roughly what they look like. You'd be able to describe to me the difference between the angry person's physiology and the depressed person's physiology. But what if I told you I had an excited person over here and a nervous person over here? What would be the difference between them? They both have sweaty palms. They'd be both shallow, fast breathing. They both have a little sweat on their brow. They both have a little bit of tension. They are experiencing the same physiological emotion. The only difference between nervousness and excitement is what's going on in your head. That's it. So let me be clear that nervousness is simply excitement with a negative expectation. Nervousness equals excitement plus a negative expectation. That's it. And so what that means is that if you're feeling nervousness, it means that you're really actually excited. You're just unsure of how it's going to work out. Right? And so hang on a minute. How many of you that are nervous of speaking have gone out and done a talk, and that talk has gone really, really well, and yet you are still nervous of public speaking? How many of you had that? Give me a couple yeses if you've had that situation. Look at that, right? You went off. So wait a minute. Why is it you're still nervous? You've done it. It went well, and yet you still have a negative expectation. Well, let's go back. If nervousness is excitement plus a negative expectation, let's reverse that. It's an easy mathematical process. Excitement equals nervousness plus a positive expectation, doesn't it? Does this make sense to you? So then how do we get you to create a positive expectation? How do we get you to create a positive expectation so that you can switch from nervousness to excitement? Well, one of the issues is that if you've ever done a talk before, as many of you have, then what you need to do is associate to that reaction. You need to get really clear about the fact that you did well, you got some giggles, you got some laughs, you got some poignant comments, you got people coming up to you later and telling you did a great job. You need to focus on that stuff before you go on the stage. You need to focus on that stuff while you're writing the talk so that you have a positive expectation and you can literally light switch, flip yourself from nervousness to excitement that way. And then I'm going to give you one more really important hack. Never tell the audience or show the audience in any way that you are nervous. Please don't do that. Some of you will have heard this story before if you've ever been to one of my workshops, but one of my clients, Jessica Rain, one of my favorite people, she's an incredible woman, and she came and she did our Speaking Academy program, and then she went off to do a talk, and it was incredible. She sent me a video of it. She was speaking about mindfulness, and she rocked it. It was incredible. The audience loved her. She got a huge standing ovation. It was picture perfect. Everything was fine. But as the audience was clapping for her, she did something. It was a little tell. She let them know she was nervous. It was very subtle. I don't know if I'm going to show you what she did. You might not even be able to spot it because it was so subtle, but you just let me know. Because here's the problem. In a second, I want you to think about this. Why? Why do we tell the audience we're nervous? Why do we show them with our body that we're nervous? Why do we show them with our tone of, why are we doing that? What is the benefit in I want some answers from you guys. What is the benefit to you for the audience to know you're nervous? Because there must be some benefit, right? Now think about that. Think about that and give me the answers. But now watch. She finishes her talk. It's a fabulous talk and everybody's giving her an applause. And then this is what she does. Subtle? Did you catch it? Okay, like not so subtle, right? But you've got the answers in here because they want sympathy. No, listen. Elta says, hey, Elta, fabulous to see you all the way from Las Vegas here. Elta, there is a benefit to them. They think. You're right that there isn't any, but they think there is or else they wouldn't be doing it. And what they're doing in emotional terms is fishing. What they do is at the beginning, they go, wow, I'm a bit nervous about this talk, because that way they feel that even if they don't do so well, they've kind of created an excuse, and now people will come and give them sympathy, right? That's why they're doing it. It's not conscious. I'm not saying any of you have ever done this consciously. It's unconscious. So when Jessica did that move, it was an unconscious way of making sure that the standing ovation was really strong and that people came up to her and told her how good her talk was. But here's the problem. If you show the audience that you're nervous and then they come up and tell you how great your talk was, you won't believe them. That's why many of you have done presentations that have gone really well and then gone to your next talk still nervous, because the audience knew you were nervous. And so the applause you got, the praise you got, the comments you got, you felt as though they were lacking in honesty. You felt as though they were sympathy, that they were not genuine praise. That's why we don't want to let them see that we're nervous. And then there's another reason we don't want them to see we're nervous, and that is that nervousness equals a lack of congruency, a lack of authenticity. If you're trying to raise money for your company and you're standing there nervous, not good. If you're trying to get people to vote for you in a political arena and you're nervous, not good. If you're trying to sell a product or a service and you're nervous, not good, because people will pick up on the nervousness and they'll pick it up as a lack of authenticity. And it will give them the vaguest feeling that they can't completely trust you. And so it's important to overcome this. It's incredibly important. So one of the biggest things you can do to really improve your stage confidence is avoid a massive mistake that people make. One of the biggest mistakes that people make when getting ready to do a presentation is that they don't lock down the first 15%. It's the first few minutes on stage that set the entire foundation. It's the first 15%, let's call it, that'll create for you the platform from which you build your entire talk. And if you can really focus on preparing a solid beginning, then you can really, really deliver something powerful over time. And here's what I mean. We, at our speaking academy, we talk about this as the F-15, the first 15%, or the F-15 fighter plane. Because an F-15 on a short sortie, on a short flight, it will use half of its fuel just to lift off. Just to lift off, it'll use half of its fuel. And so what I'm suggesting to you is that at least half of your effort should go into the first 15% of your presentation, knowing precisely how you're going to start, knowing word perfect what story you're going to tell to kick them off, knowing how you're going to get that first giggle or first laugh from. How many of you had the experience where you managed to get the audience to give a bit of a giggle, maybe on purpose, maybe by accident, but you got the audience to giggle a little or laugh a little in a nice way, and the minute you heard them laugh, you felt better? How many of you have had that experience? So let's do it on purpose then. Let's do it on purpose. And so we work on creating a really powerful F-15. Here are some features of the F-15. One, introduce yourself, but gently, because your best introduction is going to come from the host of the event. I want to be really clear that when you go to an event, you should have a very carefully written out introduction, and you should have the person read that introduction word for word to help you create your credibility and authority, so that you actually already are ripping down the runway before you've even walked onto the stage. Just this last week, I was traveling and I was on tour and I was speaking at a conference, and I was the last presenter in like a 7-day program. I mean, these people were tired and worn out, and I'm there as the anchor. I'm going to bring it on home. And I'm standing there, I've got my microphone on, I'm getting ready to I'm about 2 minutes from starting. And the MC walks up to me and says, hey, Eric, can you give me like one sentence on how I can introduce you? Because we didn't know each other. He's like, we never met before this moment. So he's like, can you just give me like one sentence on how to introduce? I'm like, what? We sent a script over. We sent a proper script. Why? Because the people I was speaking to are very influential people. I want to make sure that my credibility is established before I say my first word. And of course, somehow this particular MC didn't get a copy of the script. And it was interesting how it affected my presentation, because now I had to handle that in my F15 myself. So first thing is, even before you've got your F15, is making sure that the host can introduce you properly, that can give you the credibility and authority that'll make sure people are intrigued by who's about to begin. Then you do a soft introduction of yourself. Another feature is what I call the big fat claim. What I'm saying is, tell them what they're going to get. In fact, if you want to go and see a really nicely put together talk, one of mine, Google the hindsight window. In fact, if somebody from my team, if you can go ahead and put the YouTube link to the hindsight window in the chat, that would be great. But go and check this out. It's an 18-minute TED-style talk that was done at Mind Valley's A-Fest. And you will see in the very beginning of that talk, a talk that I had never done before anywhere, a talk that was spontaneously added to the schedule because Vishen Lakhiani, the founder of Mind Valley, walked up and said, "Hey, Eric, could you do one more talk tomorrow?" And I created this talk on a moment's notice, and then I walked up and go and watch what I say in the first few minutes. I say something like this: "I'm really excited that I'm about to deliver this talk for you because I know that many of you are going to remember this talk for years to come." That's not nervous, is it? It's a big fat claim. Why do I want to do that? Because I want them to be listening. And so I'm going to make a committed statement about the value they're going to get. And so they were told, and now they're intrigued and they're paying more attention, which is allowing me to have a greater influence on them. The other thing that your F15 should have is some kind of funny anecdote or a cute little story or something that is going to clinically produce a laugh. Many of you will have heard this one if you've ever seen me talk live, particularly if you've seen me talk live in a personal development environment. And I'm going to give you the very short version of it because it can be told as about a 60-second version, or I've got about a half-an-hour version of it if I'm teaching the larger topic. But the short version is, one day I was doing an event. I was doing an event for Tony Robbins, and I was going to get introduced by the host of the event, who was Chinese. It was a Chinese event with translators. And the host of the event was going to introduce me in Chinese. But when Tony and I connected, we really connected well. And he's like, "I want to introduce this guy myself." So he went and asked for my introduction script, but they couldn't find it because the Chinese people had translated it to Chinese and threw out the English one. So Tony instructs the guy, "Well, you know what? Just go ahead and translate it back into English for me." Right? I don't know how much of you have worked in any kind of translation work, but I dare you to take a script with numbers in it, translate it to Chinese, and then translate it. In fact, you can do this yourself. Go to Google Translate and see how this works out for you. It's fascinating. And so in the bio, where it actually said a bunch of stuff, but one of the things said that Eric started his first business and sold it 9 years later. That's what it said. Instead of that, Tony walked up on stage and he goes, "You guys, I'm so excited to introduce this next speaker. He started his first business when he was only 9 years old." So, of course, now when I go off and do events, I can tell that story right at the beginning, particularly if the story, if I'm speaking somewhere where it's like with translation, because it's contextual and it's funny and it makes people laugh and it gives credibility because I've done these events with Tony, right? It's just really nice F15 story. So your F15, first thing is you should have your own script so that some of your F15 is taken care of before you even launch. Then it should have a big fat claim. Let the people know what they're going to get. Tell them what you're going to tell them and make sure that they know it's valuable. And it should have some kind of a little funny anecdote or some cute little story that'll make them laugh or, just kind of get things going. So these are key things to help you get your F15 working. The other thing is that once you understand this, you begin to realize that in a teaching environment, it's really important. We will do this at the beginning of each segment. So for example, in our 5-day speaking academy, what I will do at the beginning of each segment is I will run an F15 pattern right at the beginning. And what I'll do is I'll say, this is what I'm about to teach. And so and then what we do, and this is really cool, is all through the 5 days, we bring in very special guests to be the MC. So they get to do F15s that you get to see. And do you know who the special guests are? You. That's right. We make you, the guests, the special guests. And so all through the 5 days, each one of you is getting this opportunity to practice your F15s and really feel what they're like in front of a real audience. So that is one of the most important things that I can give you, is really know how you're going to begin. And one more little anecdotal story about how I learned this really well. When I was touring with Tony Robbins, a friend of mine called me one day and he goes, "Eric, I understand you're about to start working with Tony. Congratulations. That's a huge opportunity for you. And I think you're going to do really well. He says, you're one of the best I've ever seen. I think you're going to do fantastic. The challenge is that you very often start quite softly. You know, you kind of walk out and start softly. Well, there's a reason that I do that. And it's part of something called the charisma pattern that we teach in our speaking academy. It's a way of preparing and structuring your talks so that all the people in the audience like your presentation. The softer, more kinesthetic people, the auditory people, the more visual people. There's a way of starting your presentation that brings them all in to create broad spectrum appeal. And I'm quite good at that. But the challenge is it's not super effective when you're going on stage after Tony Robbins, because Tony Robbins takes people up to level 1000, right? You know, it's like, get up there, make it happen. And so if you walk on the stage without the right F15, you're not going to have rapport with the audience. Well, let me tell you something. The very first event I ever did with Tony Robbins, like normally at events, there's Tony Robbins and maybe a bunch of other speakers, but they put me on right after Tony. So the audience is completely warmed up, completely hot. They're on their feet. They're like excited. And then I've got to go on right after that and maintain that energy. And because this friend called me and gave me this advice, I prepared properly. I created an appropriate F15. And after doing that event the one time, for the entire year and a half that I toured with Tony, speaking all over the world, in Las Vegas, in Australia, in England, and so on, every single business mastery event that I spoke at, they always made me follow Tony directly. The hardest slot to fill. Why? F15. So I really want you to know that you need to get your F15 handled correctly. Okay, excellent. So good stuff. And by the way, somebody's just given us some notes in there. Just somebody from our team gave you some little notes so that you can really just record that, so you know what goes into creating a great F15. I've seen a couple of you guys. I know some of you are already registered to come out to our 5-day program, either in Kananaskis in Canada near Calgary or in Oslo. But I see some of you kind of been asking a little bit about that. I'll touch on it very briefly. Many years ago, I was teaching business. And one day our clients asked, like, what was the most effective form of marketing that I thought was out there? You know, is it internet marketing? Is there, and each form of marketing has its own particular reason for being effective. You know, these days, Facebook advertising, very interesting because you can target directly to the given segment that you want. But direct mail can also be very interesting because it allows you to put a really carefully well thought out piece of mail right into somebody's hand, right in their house. So every form of marketing has its particular advantage, but nothing creates a deeper, more lasting impression than face-to-face contact. And that is just the way it is from a psychological perspective. And so I was sharing this with our business crowd. This was in Stockholm in Sweden many years ago. And then I said, and then somebody goes, yeah, but Eric, that's not very realistic. I have a business to run. How many face-to-face meetings can I have? And I said, well, yeah, that's true. I get that that's a problem. You just asked me what's the most effective version. It's that. But I'll tell you that, and I shared this, is that the good news of it is that in the same way that face-to-face is super, super powerful, face to many faces is even more powerful. There's a few reasons, but the one is that, you know, if you want to have an hour of face-to-face with a single person, that takes an hour. If you want to have an hour of face-to-face with 10 people, that takes 10 hours, unless all 10 of them are there at once, right? It's leverage. But there's another thing that's really fantastic, and that is that we have an instinct, and the instinct is that the more people that are watching somebody, the more we want to watch them too. The more people that are lined up for something, the more interested we are to be lined up for that thing. I had the craziest example. Again, I think I mentioned this on the Facebook Live yesterday. It's crazy. I'm in Amsterdam a couple of months ago. I'm walking along and I noticed something about Amsterdam is that there's a lot of these little like chippy places that sell chips, right? Chips and mayonnaise. It's an Amsterdam treat, I guess. And they're all over the place. But there's one, and it said voted #1 in Amsterdam. And there were like 80 people lined up, 80 of them. And then there were 2 other chippies. They look identical. They don't look any different. They've all copied each other. It looks like the same place basically, but there's no lineup. And there's 80 people over there. Those 80 people can see these 2 shops. Why are they all in that lineup? Let me tell you something. I don't regard chips as a particularly healthy snack, but all of a sudden I got real curious and I thought maybe I want to join that lineup, right? You see, what happens is that the more people that are interested in something, the more interested that something becomes. What if that something is you? And so I mentioned this to this crowd in Stockholm and I said, so if you really want to know, the most effective form of marketing that's even more effective to face is public speaking, because the stage effect is this really powerful type of attraction that gets created when a person stands up in front of an audience. The bigger the audience, the more attraction they create. So for example, if I'm an introvert going around a networking event and I'm meeting all these people, my question is, how many of those people are going to remember me a week later? how much are those people going to be willing to pay me to be their consultant, for example? But if I stood on stage in front of 1,000 people and I made them laugh, maybe I made them cry, maybe I made them think, maybe I made an impression on them, how many of those people are going to remember me a week later? How many of those people are going to want to work with me? How many of those people would consider themselves lucky if they had the opportunity to work with me one-on-one? How much would those people be willing to pay me to work one-on-one compared to if I met them the old-fashioned way? And so I shared this with the group in Stockholm, and they immediately said to me, you need to teach us how to do this. And I said, sure, I'll do it. And so I said, I'll add an extra 1 hour bonus content as part of our 5-day business program, 1 hour bonus content, and I'll do it for you. If you guys are all willing to wake up an hour earlier. And I said, but I'm only doing it if enough of you want to do it, right? You know, there were about 50 people at the seminar. And if like 10 of them raise their hands, I'm like, I'm going to get the extra hour of sleep. But if it was at least half of them, I'd do it. And I said, so if I am willing to get up an extra hour early for you guys, how many of you are willing to get up an extra hour early? And every single person raised their hand. And you know what's really crazy? Sometimes people raise their hand, but the next morning when the alarm goes off, maybe they're not so committed. They all showed up. And I gave them 1 hour, very much similar to what I'm sharing with you right now, on how to become more comfortable with speaking, what nervousness is really about, key things about their F15. And by the end of that hour, they insisted that I create a 5-day speaking program, which I did. And it's now by far and away our most highly rated event. Some of you, if you're very extensively involved in marketing, you will understand something called Net Promoter Scores. Net Promoter Scores are a marketing measure that measures customer happiness and customers' likeliness to go out and magnify or talk about your product or service. And the way that works is that you ask a number of questions in a survey, and then it goes into a mathematical formula, and it spits out a number from -100 to +100. A minus score obviously indicates unhappy clients, and a plus score indicates happy clients. And scores inside the 50s indicate clients that aren't talking about your product or service, and scores higher than the 50s suggest that people are talking about it. So if you have a -45, then they're not happy with the product or service, but they're not telling anybody. -55, they're unhappy and telling people. If you can run a seminar that has a +55, that's the holy grail of the seminar world. That's what you're aiming for. You want that because it means they're happy and they're telling their friends about it. The iPhone has a score of 62 or 63. Don't you know it? If you have friends that have an iPhone, you know you have friends that have an iPhone. They'll tell you. And so because they've got an NPS of 62, it's 63 or something. So people are out there talking about it. Well, you know what? I was really, really impressed one day to find out that our business training, our 5-day business training, had an NPS score in the 80s. That's world class. But let me tell you this, our 5-day speaking program consistently has an NPS score above 90. There are very few products or services in the world that can boast that, and it's absolutely consistent for us. What happens during that 5 days is, I mean, magic. It's one of my funnest things to do for people, because what's happening there is that we're going through a very good balance of education and practical experience. Education and practical experience. So in the mornings, I teach particular skills, then we practice those skills in the room, and then in the afternoon, we go into drill rooms and practice and practice and practice and practice. And then we come back in and learn another set of skills, and we then practice those in the room, and then we practice more, and we go through some really intense exercises. I'm curious how many of you have ever done a fire walk? No, we won't be doing a fire walk, but how many of you have ever done one? Because there's an exercise that we do in the Speaking Academy that many people have told me was even more terrifying, but even more powerful for them than any kind of firewalk. And that's because what we're doing is we're breaking with the old and bringing in the new. And the level of transformation we experience on that program is unlike anything I've seen in the personal development world. I could give you story upon story, but I'll just give you one. From that very first Swedish class, we had a guy named Lars in the class. And Lars, if I remember correctly, was an accountant. But Lars was not, exploding with personality. He could walk into a room and you wouldn't even notice him. He was small in his energy. He just, I haven't checked on him in the last year or so, but about a year ago, I heard from our team in Stockholm that he has since, this is not a guy who was doing any public speaking of any kind. He has since won 3 comedy championships as a comedy speaker at Toastmasters. No kidding. And that is absolutely consistent of the kind of transformation that we see in the program. By the way, I saw somebody earlier wrote a question. Do I think that Toastmasters is helpful? I absolutely do. It's a bit old school. And I don't want you to learn all the skills that they're teaching because they're teaching amateur speaking, but it provides an unbelievably powerful place to practice and learn. And so that we recommend that all of our speaking academy program clients go and find a place to practice, and Toastmasters can definitely be one of them. You don't want to necessarily learn the things they're teaching, but you can use the place as a really great environment to connect with other speakers. Some of the things that you'll learn, for those of you who are coming out to our 5-day program or who are going to come out sometime in the future, you will learn how to create the stage effect and how to use it to create maximum influence. This means that you might want to, raise money for your company, or if you're running for political office, or raising money for a charitable, program, or you're trying to sell products, or even you're trying to recruit people to work for your company. There's a variety of different ways that the stage effect can create unbelievable shortcuts for you. It is an unfair advantage in your professional life, without question, and we'll show you how to use it to the absolute best of your abilities. You will also learn how to use stories to keep people really engaged in your presentations. You'll learn to use stories that help people to see points much more clearly. So instead of, look, you've all seen that conference speaker who gives a lot of information, and sure, it was good information, but you can't remember much of it. And if they just anchored those points in with some good stories, then they would go in here, and then the next day you'd be able to use that information without having to think about your notes and stuff. It would be integrated. And we'll show you how to do that with your stories. Basically, one of the ways you can tell when it's been done properly, how many of you have ever been to a presentation? In fact, if you have, I'd like to know which speakers are able to do this for you. Tell me the names of the speakers if you've been to this presentation. You went to the presentation, you were completely engaged the entire time, you didn't feel like opening up your phone and looking at Facebook, and at the end of it, if somebody asked you how long it went, you couldn't tell if it was like hours and hours or minutes because there was a total time warp. How many of you have seen a presentation like that, and who was the speaker that did that for you? Okay, other than me, come on, guys. There are other speakers that can. Thank you. That's sweet, guys. Probably one of those people should get a water bottle for the, for the praise. Yeah, I would agree. Dan Millman, Blair Singer, Seth Godin. I don't know Dennis, but I'll take your word. Raza Aziz, Lisa Nichols, for certain, good friend of mine. Tony Robbins, also a good friend of mine, very good at doing that. Anders Hagland, another good friend of mine, very good at doing that. Joseph McClendon, I know him. He's also very good at doing that. Brendan Burchard. So you can see that there's a frequency of people that can do that. And guys, aren't you beginning to notice all of those people have the same consistent truth? They're able to use stories to keep their audience engaged and to teach them. Absolutely, that's awesome. So the other thing you'll learn to use is voice. We're going to work with you on how to cultivate voice, how to use your voice to create maximum engagement. You need to know that your audience is made up roughly of a spectrum of people where roughly a third of them are more soft-spoken and prefer a more soft-spoken presentation. And then there are people who are kind of in the middle that like a mid-range presentation. And then there are people at the other edge which really like a loud and fast-paced presentation. And so the question is, how are you going to appeal to all of them? And we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to show you a couple of powerful skills and then measurement tools that will allow you to put together a talk where the audience comes away and goes, that was absolutely incredible. We're going to absolutely show you how to overcome your fear. Not even show you how to do it. We're just going to do it to you. We're going to get you to a place where by the end of the 5 days, matter of fact, by the end of about a day and a half, that fear is really either gone or so manageable that you don't even really notice it because you recognize it as a form of excitement and you're going to be in good shape. And we're going to show you how to create really, really effective presentations through speech maps where you will never need notes, where you'll be able to remember your presentations without notes or slides of any kind. And you'll be able to create totally time flexible presentations where you could have a presentation that you designed to be an hour. And then the producer comes up to you and says, can you cut your talk down by half an hour? And you will, no kidding, you'll be able to go, yeah, no problem. You'll be able to do that because the system we're going to show you is going to make it super, super flexible for you to be a true pro at what you're doing. You will never need to use notes again. You will never need slides. We'll show you how to use them, but you won't need them. And that's really key. Because by the way, guys, tell me this. If you have 3 speakers at a conference and one of them needs their slides and the slide projector is going to break for one speaker, which speaker do you think the slide projector breaks for? The one who needs them. And so you never want to need your slides. All right, let's go on here. The other stuff that we're going to cover in here is really key. You're going to learn, many of you have probably studied some forms of inception marketing with me. Maybe you've been to a workshop or you see me speak about it online. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing inception marketing for speaking. So we're going to show you how to develop inceptive stories and then deliver them from stage. And so that you're able to tell a story that allows people to come to the logical conclusions you want to without you having to force them there. It's a much gentler way of creating influence, and a much more pleasant way, and a much more effective way of creating a lasting memory. Wow, there's some really great more names on there. Mark Cuban is definitely good at that. Steiner, I love Steiner. Steiner actually came out and helped and co-presented some of our Speaking Academy once. He's a fabulous storyteller. So great, you guys are doing it excellent. And yes, Anna, thank you. I know that I do that as well. It is a powerful way of doing things. Next thing, we will talk to you about how to build your brand as a speaker. Who are you to the public? Who are you to the people who are going to be following you and going to your talks and listening to you? And we'll share with you, different ways of building your business and how to get yourself booked as a speaker, how to build a business as a speaker. We'll definitely share with you how to maintain your energy. Some of you have probably, if any of you have been to any of my live events, you've seen that I can be on stage for 10 or 12 hours for 3, 4, 5 days in a row. And some of you probably been a little curious about how I do that. And so I'll share with you how we do that to maintain your energy before, during, and after the presentation so that you're really, truly effective at what's going on. And here's the key thing. We'll show you how to deal with audience interaction. Like what to do if you forget what you're going to say, or how to deal with audience questions, or how to deal with audience heckling. We're going to show you how to deal with that stuff, because I want you to be in a position where you walk on stage and there's literally nothing that can happen that phases you, that you can walk on stage and you are unfazable. Like you just walk on, and pretty much anything that could happen in the room, you're ready for. And guess what? During the 5 days, we're going to do some of that stuff to you. Yeah, better to do it in a safe environment so that you're really clear about how to handle it when it happens. And I'll tell you, I mentioned the story with Gautam earlier. He showed up at the event. He had these beautiful slides all done for a TEDx talk, right? I mean, an audience, cameras rolling, and boom, the slides didn't work, and it did not matter. In fact, I'm going to ask him the next time I see him, but I'll bet you that if you asked him, he would tell you his presentation was even better without the slides. And so it's really important that we teach you how to be able to do any kind of presentation and not and be unfazable. Ritva, good example. Ritva was really, she was really struggling with like breaking into personal authenticity. Like, how do I really show you who I am on the stage? And what she did at that event was, it was like, I don't know how to put it, but it was like a personality transformation. She went from, she's from Finland, and listen, I don't want to go too far down the stereotype road here, but stereotypes exist for a reason, some of them, and that doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means it's politically incorrect to discuss them sometimes. So I'll be a little politically incorrect here, and I'm just going to say something gentle. And by the way, if there's anybody from Finland on here, I'd like to know if you feel like this might be a little bit true, but I would say that Finnish people are not the most expressive people I've ever met. Anybody from Finland, or anybody from Northern Europe? Anybody? They're not often the most expressive. But one of the reasons they're not is they've been socially conditioned to be that way. Oh, Ella, we're not even getting into Estonia yet. That's another level altogether. But what's really crazy is that once you break that outer shell, everybody is really expressive. They want to be. In fact, this is a little bit sad, but if you go to countries like Finland, if you go to countries like Switzerland, if you go to countries where there is a lot of this social pressure to not be very expressive, those countries very often have pretty significant alcohol issues, right? Why? Because people use alcohol to break out of that. What we're going to do is show you how to break out of it without alcohol at all. And Ritva did such an incredible job of that. She was absolutely compelling and entertaining on stage. And she really showed us her and who she was. And so it was really, really fabulous. Carrie Ann also, same thing. She says, after only 5 days, I see that I've changed. I will now not go back into my shell. I will use my voice differently. I will tell stories with more engagement. And stories pop into my head because I now know how to construct them and build them up with a point at the end. I know that the speech map will be important for me as I push myself to practice whenever I get the opportunity. This is another great example of, definitely, Carrie Ann had stories that she wanted to get out there and that she wanted to be able to tell. And all of a sudden now she has the tools to be able to do that. And that's really what this is about. The key thing is where and when. For many years, we've only ever run these programs in Europe because I was teaching business in Europe for the most part. This year, we have 2 phenomenal locations. And for those of you who are in Canada or the United States, for years, one of the biggest complaints we've been getting at our help desk is, why do I have to go all the way to Europe? You have to go all the way to Europe because that's where it is, except not anymore. And so this year we're going to be doing an event, and it's just outside of Calgary. It's in Kananaskis. It's one of the most beautiful, truly one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's January 15th to 19th, 2019. And it is a absolutely stunning location. And we already have an incredible assortment of fantastic people coming into that event. And so that's one of the locations. If you are anywhere in North America, well, you know what? Look, if you're European and these dates work better for you, great. But now, because we've been getting a lot of comments from our North American clients wanting us to do programs in North America, here we are. So just outside Calgary, Alberta, January 15th to 19th, 2019. And I believe there's about 15 places left for the Kananaskis event. And the other event is in just outside Oslo. Funny enough, in a kind of similar environment, out in the mountains. And by the way, some of you who know that part of the world really well, you'll be going, Oslo, that's going to be super, super expensive. No. What we've done is we found an incredible resort, and we take over the entire resort. And we've negotiated a flat fee for accommodation, which is incredibly reasonable, even compared to the rest of the world, never mind Oslo. And it includes the food built in. So it's not like, for those of you who know, Oslo can be really expensive. This place is not like that at all. This is like a little pocket of not Norway. And it is a really, really nice environment for doing the Speaking Academy. In fact, this is the only venue that we've gone back time and time and time again. I think this is our third or fourth year in a row doing the Speaking Academy at this particular venue. You will absolutely love it. And so if you are based in Europe and that's a bit easier for you, or if those dates are more effective, June 11th to June 15th, 2019, then Oslo is your choice. Absolutely a great venue. You definitely want to be there. So my question for you is, for those of you who are not already currently registered for that, are you ready to kind of move forward and invest in yourself as a speaker? If you are, there's something really important you need to know about this program. This program is absolutely guaranteed. And what I mean by that is we don't believe in satisfaction guarantees. We believe in like blow your mind guarantees. And so you have a zero risk proposition to get yourself registered and come out to the event. And so just make it happen. If you have any desire, and by the way, I want you to just think a little bit about what your life would be like as a speaker, how it might impact your income. If you're running a business or if you have a job, is it more likely to get you promotions? If you have a book you want to launch, is it going to help you to become a better bestseller? If you want to become a paid speaker, how much do you plan to charge per talk? And even if you do, say, maybe 20 talks in the year, how much income is that going to add to your bottom line? This can be one of the most powerful, powerful investments you ever make in your future. So here's the question. If it's so valuable, what's the investment that we're looking for from you guys? Well, the regular investment price for the program is $7,997. And that is not the early bird price. So you will not be on this webinar. You will not be paying $7,997. I will tell you, absolutely. Last year we sell up to a certain number of places, and then we get into a couple of months before the event, and then people are absolutely paying that price to come to the event. So this is not some inflated, whatever. This is the genuine price of the event. But because it's still tail end of the year and there's still some time, we have an early bird kind of bonus offer for you guys. Here's how it's going to work. So what we want to do to make sure that you really get out there and become as effective as possible, we want to give you a really important bonus. Now, if you've already had this bonus from us, we'll have a plan, but hang tight. This is going to seem like, well, look, many of you will know me as the founder of WildFit. So I've already dropped a little clue in here. How is it that I'm able to fly around the world? Like, no kidding, yesterday, I arrived home yesterday, and this was my travel pattern. I was in Thailand. I was in Bali for a week. I was in Thailand for a week. I was in Singapore. Then I went to New York, and then I arrived home yesterday. I am fine. I don't have jet lag. I immediately jump. I can be back on stage. Where does all that energy come from? Well, if you know WildFit, you'll know where it comes from. And so one of the bonuses that we're offering for anybody who is registering for the Speaking Academy from this webinar is we're going to give you a free place in a WildFit challenge. And this is not a small thing. We've done this before, but we've given away a digital access membership, which means that people can go through the WildFit challenge digital access. So they can just watch the videos. You can buy that from our website for about $600. This is different. We're actually giving you live coaching access. You get to join a full-on WildFit class at the proper value of $1,500. You get to join with live coaching, because what we want you to do is we want you to turn your energy on. We want you to absolutely have the energy that you need to have to be the most effective, the most influential, the most powerful speaker you can be. And so for anybody who is registering for this program, we are going to give you the Wild Fit Challenge as a bonus, as a gift from us. Does that sound reasonable and fair? Because, you know, one of the reasons that I was inspired to offer you this is that one of my favorite clients, okay, I have a lot of favorite clients, I admit, but Lucas really is one of my favorite clients. And Lucas is based in Alberta. And he was first introduced to me as a result of WildFit, if I remember the story correctly, and he lost 75 pounds. He ended up coming out to the Speaking Academy, and now he is a force to be reckoned with. He is a regular inspiration to me. He is unbelievably funny, deep heart connection. And a big reason that he's able to do that is that WildFit helped him change a number of the addictions, food and otherwise, that he was dealing with. So he was able to lose a lot of weight. He was able to completely turn his life around. And so for those of you who either have some health recovery you want or just optimization, we want you to have the WildFit Challenge as a gift because we believe it's one of the best investments you can make in yourself to become an even more effective speaker. In case you don't know about WildFit, you can see from the stories that we have here on the slides, we're talking about wholesale health transformation. It's, you know, maybe you've got some weight you want to lose. Maybe you just want to sleep better. Maybe you'd like a little extra sex drive. Maybe you want better cognition and memory. It doesn't really matter. The bottom line is that when you improve your relationship with food, you improve your entire existence. So what that means is that you get the Business Freedom Speaking Academy at $7,997. You get the WildFit Challenge. Okay, hang on. My team, I'm going to add something to this. I know you don't like when I do on the fly stuff, but I'm doing an on the fly thing. I mentioned earlier that in the Speaking Academy, we cover inception marketing for the stage. But I want to add one more thing. We have a video training program on inception marketing. Anybody who is registering for the Speaking Academy from this webinar, we're going to add on the slide you're looking at now. Imagine that slide says Inception Marketing Video Training Program, $600. You can go buy it at inceptionmarketing.com anytime you want, but I'm going to give it to you as part of your registration because I want you to consider it like a little bit of a home study preparation even before you come to the Speaking Academy so you can really begin to lock down storytelling from an inceptive perspective. And so the overall value will be actually just over $10,000 when you add the Inception Marketing Video Training. Incidentally, if any of you have already done WildFit or you already have Inception Marketing, you are absolutely, these are transferable. You can sell them or you can give them away. That's absolutely, you're absolutely able to do so. And so with this offer from this webinar, you only pay $3,997 to get all three things. You get the Live Speaking Academy, you get the WildFit 90 Challenge, and you get the Inception Marketing Video Training. And remember this, remember that our 5-day program is covered by our Your Mind Blown or Your Money Back Guarantee. You come up to us halfway through the program and you say, you know what, this just isn't really working for me. We will give you a refund. We will do the best we can to make it work for you. And if it isn't working for you, if it's not blowing your mind, we give you a refund. That's our guarantee. So there are also payment plans available. We're going to give you a website where you can go and find out more about the program, confirm the dates, get the locations and that sort of stuff. And there's also information there about the different payment plans options to make it as easy for you as possible. So what I want to know from you guys is if you look at your worksheet again, and here's what I'd like to know, and I'd like this in the chat as well. Matter of fact, definitely water bottles will be given based on some of these answers. The answer that I want is item number 3. If you had a magic wand and could realize your ultimate dream as a speaker, what would it be? What would you talk about and what would you be doing to inspire others? What is it? What is the influence you want to have? What are you going, if you come to the Speaking Academy program and boom, you achieve everything you want, what is that going to look like? Go ahead and fill that out on your worksheet. And also, like I said, I want to see the comments. Joanne, that's an incredibly admirable goal. I love that. The food revolution is underway and speaking is a big, big part of that. Lucas, I think you'd be an unbelievable addition at A-Fest. Yeah, Zena, that's excellent. Sustainable living. I'd love to see a lot more people talking about that sort of stuff. Sharing my stories. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Mickey, when people begin to understand what lymphatic fluid is and how important the lymphatic system is, it changes their life. I think it's fabulous. You're going to get out there and tell those stories. That's wonderful. Oh, Nicola, absolutely. I wish somebody had done that for me. I woke up in my mid-20s with debt like that I thought was going to drown me. Wow, you guys, these are some really, really, really great topics and really great reasons for making this work. All right. So with that in mind, here's my next question for you, because I want to try and help you with some of these things right now here on this call. The next item number 4 on the worksheet is, what are the 3 biggest blocks holding you back? What are the 3 biggest blocks that are holding you back from realizing this, from being everything that you can be from a speaking perspective? Fear, money, judgment. Yeah. Not knowing where to speak. Uh-huh. Yeah, I can relate to a whole lot of these things. Devi, I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope you're recovering well. Yeah, guys, I get these. These are important things. So here's what I want to do. I want to share with you a couple of things that might help a little bit with this, whether it's, whether it helps you to come out to the Speaking Academy or just generally propels you forward in getting your message out there. The one I want to share with you is, a few people of you talked about the judgment of others, what other people will think, self-confidence, self-esteem, that sort of stuff. So one of the things I want to really share with you is that most of us spend a huge amount of energy holding ourselves into a little range of experience. We don't want to be too much because we don't want to make other people feel bad. And we want to be enough because we don't want to feel bad. Now, social media is making this much worse for us because everybody's posting their best version of their life online, which is making everybody feel like their life isn't as good as everybody else's life. And so this is a very interesting psychological principle. And what I want to suggest to you is, the day you give yourself permission to just be you, which is exactly what I will do for you over the 5 days, the day you give yourself permission to just be you is the day that you will find you have an incredible burst of energy. And the reason being is that we all do, an incredible amount of energy controlling our behavior, being what and who other people expect us to be. And when you finally let go of that, you get a huge burst of energy in your life, and life becomes infinitely more enjoyable. And the joke is that the very people that you might have been afraid that would judge you for being larger than life, for getting out there and sharing your message, are inspired by you. And so I want you to really think about that. Please do not let that hold you back. Whether it means coming to our program or just simply moving forward on your own, please move forward and share your best version of you. Every country has this version of, in Scandinavia, what they call Jantala, in Australia, what they call tall poppy syndrome. Every country has a cultural pressure to keep people down. In Australia, they call it tall poppy syndrome because if you're harvesting poppies, if one poppy grows taller than the rest, you want to cut it down so it doesn't breed, because you want all the poppies at the right level so they're easier to harvest. Well, how this translates is that if a couple of people or a few friends are around the table and one person starts getting, oh, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm having a great life, and then they go off to the toilet and then their friends turn around and go, somebody's got to cut him down to size, right? Cut him down to size. Well, you know what? Do not worry about and do not let anyone cut you down to size. Be you fully, because it is only by being you fully that you can really inspire other people, especially if you're a parent, by the way. If you have children, the single best way that you can, how many of you are parents and would like for your children to be extremely well self-expressed and happy with themselves and in their own skin? If you would like that as a parent, then here's what I want to suggest to you. Then you need to live that way. That's the only way you can teach children anything, is to live that way. And so I want to suggest to you that if that's what's holding you back, deal with it. Take the steps today and deal with it. If it means coming out to our Speaking Academy, I'm telling you, I guarantee you that around about midpoint on day 3, this stuff will be done for you to a large degree. You will be a new person because you will be willing to be yourself. And you will take off the shackles of the social pressure that you've been facing. I see quite a few people talking about money, and man, I know how difficult that can be. I will tell you, I remember waking up one day at about 25 years old, 26 years old, and realizing that I had like $100,000 in consumer debt, like credit cards and that kind of stuff, car loans, and a mortgage to deal with. And I was 26 years old. I know how difficult that is. And I want to put to you that I want to offer you a couple finance hacks. Maybe they won't help you for this year. maybe they won't. But I want to offer you some money psychology and finance hacks that might help you in the future. The first thing is I want you to start thinking about your spending. Every time you spend money, I want you to think about whether what you are doing is an investment or a cost. I want you to think about that. So for example, if you go to the store and you buy lots of fresh vegetables, is that an investment or a cost? Give me some answers. Is that investment or a cost? There it is. Investment, investment, investment. Absolutely. Now, if while you're at the store, you also decide to buy yourself some chocolate cake, is that an investment or a cost? Right? So you can see most people are saying cost, and some people cost times 1,000, and then you got Anna, and they're going investment with a smiley face. Well, one could argue that it's an investment in your emotional well-being in that moment. So you're making a short-term investment in your emotional well-being with a long-term cost on your health. But the difference is that one thing is something that you really need, and the other thing is something that you want. One thing is an investment in your body and in your structure, and the other one is a consumer thing that you're doing. I'll give you another example. If you, let's say that this webinar, by the way, if this webinar had been $20, would it have been worth it for you to spend $20 to be here? And if it was $20, would it be an investment or a cost? There you go. Now, if you go to the next, Marvel Comics, superhero movie or the romantic comedy or whatever movie you like to do, and you spend $20 and you go to that movie, is that an investment or a cost? That's right. Now, you can argue that it's an investment because you want entertainment and so on, but the fact is it's an optional cost that you are spending for an emotional enjoyment. So yes, you can argue that it's an investment, and no, if it's Luke Cage, it's definitely a cost. So stop it. So the point is that I want you to start thinking that way about what's going on in your life. Now, I'm not suggesting that all movies are a cost. I'm saying that you should start thinking that way. There are times when I feel like going out to a great movie has been a fabulous investment. For example, if Elise and I go out on date night and we go out to a movie and we've carefully and consciously chosen it, we've checked the reviews and our friends have told us it's a great movie and we're going to learn something from it and so on. We go to that movie and it can be an investment in our life. I'm not arguing against all movies. What I'm trying to show you is that when you make a purchasing decision, you have to make a decision about whether it's an investment or cost. And here's what I want to suggest to you is that for the most part, if you are borrowing, you shouldn't borrow for anything that isn't an investment. Right? So if you're going out and buying something that's like a cost, if you're buying something that's kind of optional, you're going out to dinner instead of cooking at home, or you're going out to bubblegum movie, or you're buying some entertainment, or you're buying some clothing that you don't really need, right? Then I would suggest to you that you should absolutely not borrow money for those types of purchases. The only time that you should consider borrowing money is when you're making an investment, because that investment may assist in the repayment of that. So that's just one of the little mental hacks I'd love for you to play with for the next week, is as you go out and spend money, just decide yourself. And one of the ways you can do this, if you're paying with a credit card, you can just put a little, like when you get the receipt, you just put a little I and a little V. And you look at the end of the month and you go, how many things you were buying that were an investment and how many were buying as a cost? This is really, really an interesting exercise. Here's another one. And it kind of comes down to, a little bit to psychology and faith. And that is that I highly recommend reading the book, The Soul of Money. Lynn Twist, the author of that book, is a good friend of mine, and it is a fabulous book on money itself. And one of the principles that she shared in there is that if you wake up in the morning and you feel like you had a lack of sleep, if your first thought was, oh, I didn't get enough sleep, then what you've done is you've set a frequency, a lack frequency for the day. And so what you're doing potentially, if you go on autopilot from that point, is you're going to observe the rest of your day through a lack mentality instead of an abundance mentality. And so one of the things that I think is really powerful when trying to turn your finances around is to set your day up with, in a sense, like an F-15, really plan out the first 15% of your day so that it creates as much abundance for you as possible. So for me, for example, one of the things I like to do is I've trained myself, I don't use alarms to wake up for the most part. So that means that I wake up when I need to wake up. It helps that I went to bed at a good time the night before. It helps that I turned off electronic devices 2 hours before I went to bed, for example. And so when I wake up, I feel a sense of abundance. Then I like to have a nice bath. Why? There's something about lying in a tub of warm water and meditating that just makes me feel abundant. Then I like to have a really nice, healthy breakfast that makes me feel abundant. And so immediately I've done 3 really abundant things that are going to help me set up my belief that the world is abundant out there, and it's going to help me to spot opportunities a little bit better. So I hope these are some things here have helped you out a little bit. And you know, another one I want to offer you is this, is that I really want you to think. Here's a great example. In business, very often somebody will say to me, well, Eric, I really need to hire somebody to help me, but I really can't afford to hire them right now. And I go, well, hang on a second. What's some of the work you want them to do? Oh, basic administrative stuff that you're doing? How much would you have to pay them to do that? Oh, $20 an hour? How much are you worth when you're working in your flame, when you're doing the stuff you really should be doing, when you're really, really doing your stuff? Oh, $100 an hour? So that means that every hour you are doing this stuff that you should have an assistant to do, you're losing $80 an hour. Isn't it true? And so the weirdest thing is sometimes we have to spend a tiny little bit of money to afford ourselves the freedom to go to the next level. And what I want to put to you is one of the greatest investments you could ever make in your life is the ability to communicate effectively, because that's where promotions come from. That's where greater commissions come from. That's where being able to raise money for your company comes from. That's where being able to have a great meeting with the bank manager and negotiate the right kind of finance terms comes from. Really, and never mind the getting paid to speak. I can't speak for every country right now. I can't, but what I can tell you is in the US, if you're charging anything less than $7,000 or $8,000 for your keynote speaking fee, nobody's going to book you. They're not going to take a chance on you. They don't want a low rent speaker. They want an incredible speaker. And so then you think about, well, wait a second now. Let's take a look at the investment level here. How many speeches would I have to do to recover this? And so I want to offer you that thought process that sometimes in order to become wealthier than we are, we need to start acting, thinking, and behaving the way people that are wealthier than we are act, think, and behave. So I hope that those things kind of help you guys a little bit in terms of trying to overcome some of the barriers, whether it's with us or on your own. These are really important things to do. So let's move on. Here's the other thing I want from you guys is a little bit of market research. Help me out with this. And that is that getting to that place where you really felt free to pursue your communication path, where you really felt free to get your story out there. Maybe you felt free to come out to the Speaking Academy, or you found your own path. Like you just felt free to really communicate your message out to the world. What is the one word that would describe how that would feel to you? What is the one word that would describe how that feels to you? Inspiring, alive, contribution, exhilarating, freedom, exhaling, amazing, liberating, empowered, purpose. Wow, like this is a huge variety of words. I was expecting like maybe there'd be 1 or 2 and we'd see them repeated a lot. Fabulous, freedom, useful, empowered, accomplished. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. These are the way that, you know, these are great ways to describe how it would feel. So let me share with you. You are a spiritual being having a physical experience, and your emotions are physical experiences. They're chemicals that your body produces. And all you're really here to do is to produce the best possible chemicals you can, right? That's what we're here to do. The reason you read a book is it produces the right chemicals. The reason you watch a TV show is it produces the right chemicals. The reason you hang out with certain people, they produce the right chemicals. And so what I'm saying to you is this one word that you're describing, if you want to feel that word, then do not hold yourself back. Take action, move forward, start practicing, get yourself out to Toastmasters, come to our Speaking Academy, research, research, research. And so I would put to you that one of the most powerful first steps you could take is simply choose a city. Are you coming to Canada? Or choose a country? Are you coming to Canada or are you coming to Norway? And I'm hoping that you will make one of those things work for you before we jump into the Q&A section. So in order to make that happen, and if you want more information, I see a lot of questions about the programs. What I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to do a bunch of questions, but I'm not taking logistical questions about the program. This is not designed, this is not about me answering a bunch of sales related questions. The team will take care of that. You can write them here in the comments, or if you go to businessfreedom.com/BFSA, the link is in the chat for you. Then what you can do is when you go to that URL, you will find all the details, the dates, frequently asked questions about the logistics. Everything you need to know is there. And if it's not, there's a link to the help desk where they can get even more questions. So you go to that website, you choose your location, you get yourself registered, and then you celebrate, and the free gifts will be on their way. It might take a little bit of time for the Inception Marketing course to get to you, because that was not part of the plan. I just added that in on the webinar. And that offer is the bonuses that we've offered you here and now. This current registration bonus is available for the entire time of the replay of this masterclass, 48 hours. So if you get yourself registered in the next 48 hours, you get the Wild Fit live coach class, and you get the Inception Marketing video training, and you're set to go, and it's time to celebrate. Canada, Sharon, I love it. Canada is the place to be. So is Oslo, by the way. So incidentally, I think there are probably some of you that are already pretty well established as speakers, and maybe I've put some focus on this call toward a more novice position. And so I want to assure you of something, that many of my clients are unbelievably successful, very, very successful speakers already. And this program, because it's not a typical speaking program, it's well suited to anybody from I'm terrified of speaking and want to become a great speaker to I'm already out there speaking. And so many of you might be familiar with Marcy Shimoff, for example. Marcy is a multi best-selling author, Happy for No Reason, Love for No Reason, Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul. And I ended up working with her for a day. And she wrote this to me. And she wrote this to me in an email. And then I asked her if I could reword it and you know, we could use it as a testimonial. And she absolutely said that I could. And so she said, Eric has an intuitive grasp of two things: how to get your message out of you, and how to get your message out to the world in the most effective way possible. Every day you spend with Eric, it's like 10 years of additional stage experience. Guys, this is Marcy Shimoff from The Secret, having spoken all over the world. She's an incredibly established speaker. So I want you to know, no matter which level you're at as a speaker, this program is going to deliver fantastic results for you. So that said, now what I want to do is bonus time of just Q&A. And what that means is, and please, I don't want to answer the address of the location, what city to fly into, you know, how much the hotel rooms are. Please let the team, you can put those in the chat and the team will answer them. But what I want to answer right now is all your questions about being a speaker, what you might learn, how can I help you become a great speaker? And that's what the Q&A is about now. So if you've got questions, I think you can submit them two ways. There's a Q&A feature built into Zoom, if you can find that, or frankly, even more easily, is you can just dump them into the chat and then we'll get to them. My team, I imagine you've already collected some of the questions that have been rolling in as we've been going through this. So if you could serve them up for me, that would be really, really great. Lucas, where will the replay? Here I am saying I don't want to do logistical questions, and I'm going to answer one anyway because it's Lucas, guys. It's Lucas, everybody. Lucas, I didn't know you were live with us. It's really good to see you here. The replay of the masterclass will be emailed out to everybody that was registered already. So the link will be emailed to you once it's ready. And also, if you have friends, by the way, how many of you feel like there are friends of yours or business associates of yours that really probably should come see this masterclass? And if you feel like they should be, the team is going to post the link. You can send them, and they can register for there, and then they will get access to the recorded masterclass for sure. Let's see here. I've got my questions coming up, and here they go. Okay, so Main Bob, good to see you here, says, can you review the outline steps for a signature speech? Okay, well, this could be a masterclass all on its own, and but I'll run through some basic steps of it, Main Bob. The core thing about a signature speech is, well, first let's talk about what a signature speech is. A signature speech is a single keynote speech that you can deliver time and time again and create absolutely predictable results. Many speakers, particularly like on the professional speaking tour schedules, in a slightly different style than I do, but where what they'll do is they'll design a signature keynote, and then effectively they sell that keynote. So they'll go to one company and do it, the next company, and the next company, and the next company. I'll give you a great example of this is a friend of mine named Steve Farber, who writes incredible books on using love in the corporate environment. And he was just speaking at the BNI conference in Bangkok. He was the keynote speaker for the conference this year. And so he has a beautifully pre-worked keynote that he could deliver at the next company, the next day, and the next company, the next day. So a signature speech or a signature keynote is that. It's a packaged talk that you can do clinically, that you can repeat over and over again. And as a professional speaker, it can be so good that you can get people calling you, asking to book you to do that particular talk. An example for those of you who've seen my hindsight window talk, I've had a number of people say, hey, could you come deliver this hindsight window talk? They want me to deliver that particular talk. So that's what a signature speech is. So Main Bob, the steps of the outline of a signature speech is to, we recommend using a speech map. And what that means, for those of you who don't know what a speech map is, it's basically a mind map that organizes the order in which you are going to tell the stories. So in essence, what you do is you determine what the point of your talk is, or the points. And once you've determined what the point or points of your talk is, you figure out which stories you're going to tell that will make those points best. And then effectively you string them together. I'm going to tell this story to make this point. Then I want to make this point and tell this story to really hammer home that point. And then I want to tell this story and make that point. And the idea is that you construct this so that it's absolutely clinical and perfect, but then you tell it as though it's not. That's really key. You construct it so that it's perfect. You know exactly how it works, and it's the same thing every single time, but you tell it as though it's fresh from your mind. You tell it as though it's something you're doing for the first time so that it feels really fresh and new for the audience. So Main Bob, as you know, we could do a whole masterclass to go a whole lot deeper. But I think that gives you a surface beginning of a signature speech. Peter Axtell says, is Toastmasters recommended if we're going to Calgary for the Speaking Academy? Will you be talking about how to book speeches and practice? Peter, I highly recommend Toastmasters. I will give you a hint that there's another organization like Toastmasters called Speaker Nation, which is getting ready to launch. And I think that they will also be a really powerful resource for you. But in the meantime, I think Toastmasters is an interesting place to go and practice your talks. And so I do recommend attending some Toastmasters meetings and seeing how the vibe is for you. I can tell you, Peter, I don't know if you're based in Calgary, but I think there are something like 80 Toastmasters clubs in Calgary. So it should be fairly easy to find one where you can go. Remember, everyone, Toastmasters, what is a Toastmaster? Well, it's somebody who's a master at giving toasts. It's really an amateur speaking environment. But what it will do is provide an audience for you where you can really practice your stuff. But you also want to be a little bit careful that they teach a style. And what you don't want to do is pick up a style. One of the things that we'll do during our 5-day academy is help you develop your own style. So nobody will see you a year later with 1 million views on YouTube and go, oh, you trained with Eric. If they do that, it will only be because they go, wow, you're a really great storyteller and we know Eric's good at that. That's it. But they wouldn't, whereas I can always tell when I go to a conference, I can always tell the speakers that practice most at Toastmasters because they picked up that style. So if you do go to Toastmasters, cultivate your own style. Don't worry too much about all their systems and procedures, but definitely think of it as a great place to practice your talks. Will we be talking during the Speaking Academy about how to book speeches and get additional practice? Absolutely. That comes up every single time. Great question, Peter. See you there. Zina says, I am a personal trainer at my own gym, but I'm also a guest on this show on TV every few weeks talking about fitness topics. How can I get more clients? Well, Zena, one of the things that you'll get from the Inception Marketing video training in advance, and then you'll learn it like in direct application during the 5 days, is how to tell stories in a way that get people to want to come and do business with you. So I'll give you a clue right now, Zena. It's like, has it ever happened? And maybe, I don't know if I'll be able to see this in the comments if you can answer me, but has it ever happened that you have told a story during your TV show and that somebody's reached out to you on social media and said, wow, I really like that story you told. And so I'd love to work with you. Now, if that's even happened once, okay, there it is. She says, yes, once about myself and how I started. Great. So now, Zena, what I would do is I would tell that story. Okay. So this is how it would work. I go, what's really great about fitness is how when you live a life of fitness and you really live as an example, then that creates attraction. It makes the people around you want to do it. For example, I remember when I first started doing these TV appearances, I shared this story about how I did this, 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 and this. And then immediately this person wrote to me on Facebook and said, I want to work with you directly. And, I can't work with every single person that reaches out to me and writes to me directly, but I did in this case. So what you've just done with a bit of a story like that is you've told them that you're approachable. You sometimes need to give people permission to reach out to you. I can tell you that I used to do that. I hardly ever do it anymore because people, frankly, reach out to me a lot. I'm at the point, I hate to admit this, I have been so proud that for the last 5 years, I've managed all of my own social media myself. I can't anymore. I can't anymore because I did the strategy that I just shared with you so often that people write to me all the time directly on Instagram and on Facebook. And I do the best I can to give the personal touch, but I just can't get there anymore. But Zena, I think you could create the same thing. If you've got this platform, then what you want to do is share stories that create a permission for people to reach out to you and want to do business with you. I don't know the context of your show, but the other thing you could do is, let's say, for example, one of the things I might consider doing is I might consider doing like something like this. Well, one of the things that's really important is making sure that you get the balance between your aerobic and anaerobic exercise routines. Both are important styles of exercise. In fact, at so-and-so gym on Wednesday, I'm doing a free open house clinic where I'm going to be showing people exactly how to use this to create that in their life. And I think there's still probably about 20 or 30 places left. If you'd like to come, it's completely free, right? And then you maybe can share a registration URL. Then they click on the URL, they go there, they register. And the next thing you know, they come down, you get to spend time with them. And now that you're doing a public presentation for them, boom, you can convert them with the stage effect into paying clients. So Zena, I hope that that helps. I know that it will. Ishkia. Yes, I know. All right. So how do you keep from going off on a related yet relevant tangent that adds speaking time? Well, you just don't, or you do. And what I mean is it's contextual. What I would suggest is that when you first create a given presentation, you don't do it until you've really got a sense of the timing, right? Once you've got a sense of the timing, you know when you can shorten this story or lengthen that story. But it happens to me all the time where I suddenly realize, particularly in a training environment where I have a lot of time to play with, is that there's a story that I should tell right here because it's going to help those three people over there, because I can just tell it's going to help them. And I want to go off on that tangent. But I know my content well enough that I know that there's a story over here that I can drop out or shorten. And so it's a little bit like developing skills. Once you've developed the skills and the time awareness of your talks, you'll have a better idea about when you can go off tangent and how long you can go off tangent for. It comes down to how familiar you are with the given presentation that you're giving. The other thing is that notice when the urge comes up. Notice when the urge comes up, because one of the things you can do when the urge comes up and you go, oh my God, you guys, that reminds me about the time that I was in Zanzibar with the giant tortoises. I don't have time to cover it right now, but if we have a little time at the end, remind me and I'll tell you that story, and then move on. So it's kind of giving you the satisfaction. It's also let them know there's more stories to hear and you're back on track. Hope that that helps. Now this is it Leva? I don't know if that's an L or an I. Leva, I have no problems to give an interview for TV, but I'm absolutely scared to make a video myself. Is there a cure for this? Yeah, there is. Just do it. I know it's crazy, but here's a great way to do it. Start doing some Instagram Live or Facebook Live videos. Here's why. The trouble is that when you're recording a video, there's this awareness that it's permanent, right? Like you're creating a video and it's like, oh, if I mess something up, then I can start again and get it right. And in fact, how many of you can, on the piano or the guitar, play the first few bars of Stairway to Heaven and nothing else? Or so, first few bars of some famous song and nothing else? Well, I'll tell you why. Because nobody taught you that the best way to actually learn something is to go all the way through it, right? So what happens is that we start playing it and then we make a mistake and we go back to the beginning and start again and make a mistake. And we go back to the beginning, we start again and make a mistake. So what it means is we end up learning the beginning really, really, really well, but not the rest. Right? And so what we want to do is get to a place where we're not worried about that. So if you do Facebook Live or Instagram Live, you can't. So it goes like this. Hey, everybody, it's Eric here. I'm on Facebook Live. Oh, I'm not. I'm on Instagram Live. Sorry, I was on Facebook earlier. Now I'm on Instagram. See, you just handle it because it's live. You can't stop. Whereas if I was recording it, I'd be like, oh, I should stop and do it perfectly. Right? So, let go of your need for perfection. And simply try, just move forward and don't stop when you make a mistake, just power on. Great way to start, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, because you have to just go on. And then eventually you can start doing that in your videos. The other thing is, and this is helpful, is to learn a little bit about video editing, because one of the things you can do in video editing. So let's say I'm doing a talk and I want to say, all right, in this next section, we're going to be talking about how to develop a really good F-15. The F-15 is a metaphor of the F-15 is a metaphor of the F-15 fighter plane. Now, in editing, I can cut that middle bit out, right? So rather than I'm beginning to play Stairway to Heaven and made a mistake, I go back to the beginning, I just go through and just, when I make a mistake, I just stop and go through. And here's one little hack for the editing is the minute you know that you're going to have a stop like that, there's two things you can do. This is really cool stuff, guys. Bonus content here. But you can do this. Let's say I'm talking long and I go, well, the F-15 is a great metaphor. No, I didn't say that the way I wanted to. Okay. The F-15 is a great metaphor, right? Now, what happens is when I'm going through the edit scroll, I can look at any time I have my hands up like that, and I know that's where one of my cuts is. Another way of doing it is you go, the F-15 is a really great the F-15 is a really great metaphor. Now, if you're editing with something like Final Cut, the sound bar at the bottom will show two sound spikes. And you'll know that those two sound spikes are where you wanted to edit the clip out. And now you'll be able to just do the whole talk with the mistakes and edit those babies out. So I hope that that helps. Learning that stuff changed my life. All right, let's go to L. If you don't have many personal stories, where do I get the stories from? L, you do. You do have personal stories. If you are over 6 years old, you have many of them. The challenge is that you haven't yet really learned how to think of them as stories or to categorize them. And the reason is that you don't right now in this moment necessarily understand how important this story might be to somebody else. And so in the Speaking Academy, one of the things we'll show you is a journaling system that will help you to capture your stories and categorize them, even if you're not yet sure of the relevance. But I'll give you a clue right now. L, if you experienced emotion, you had a story. Anytime you had an emotion about something, you had a story. If you are having an emotion, you are in a story. If you're having an emotion about something that's coming, that's a story that's coming. Because the best stories are the stories that have emotion in them. And here's a little clue. If you want your audience to feel, then you must feel. And so if you were feeling, then you have a story. I guarantee you've got plenty of them. Short version right now is just start, like anytime something happens that kind of triggers an emotional response in you, record it in a journal. Just start with there. And then if you do come to our Speaking Academy or you catch another masterclass from me, we actually show a system for cataloging those stories so that somebody can walk up to you and go, hey, Elle, could you do a 45-minute talk on this topic right now? And you just go to your journal and you can instantly build that talk. Believe me, Elle, you definitely have the stories. All right. By the way, guys, this is really important. This that we're doing right now, we do this every day during Speaking Academy. Every single day, I sit on a stool and we have a fireside chat and I simply answer your questions. And as you can see, no holds barred. Ask me anything you want. So it's really, this is where some of the best value comes from. That's why no two are exactly the same. I just got a note from the team that we are a little over time and we have a ton more questions. So hang on a second. They want us to do, how many of you guys would be interested in a pure Q&A session just on speaking? Bonus, no charge, just a bonus Q&A, you know, just all about Q&A on speaking. All right, that I would call that popular demand. Okay. So, Caitlin, thank you for that message. So what we'll do then, let's see. So Caitlin says that we will do a dedicated Q&A Tuesday at 12 p.m. New York time, and that we will email you the details. And if you would like to book a call with one of our team for some more personal related questions or questions about, you know, is the Speaking Academy right for you? That kind of stuff. If you go to businessfreedom.com/BFSA, you can actually book a discovery call with one of our teams. So if you have questions about speaking, then show up on Tuesday. And if you have questions about the Speaking Academy, trying to find out if you're really a good candidate for the program and if the program is really right for you, or you just want to make some more discoveries about your speaking, your sort of objectives about being a speaker, then go back to that website and book a discovery call with one of the members of our team, and they will make that happen for you. And then we will do the Q&A session Tuesday, November 20th at 12 p.m. lunchtime in New York. We use New York as the base time because when we say GMT, PST, the people in different countries don't know what these things mean. So you can all look it up based on New York time. Now, in the meantime, we have a bunch of questions. Like, for example, I have questions here from Connie, Marion, Joanne, Alex, Teresa, DJ, Cynthia. I mean, tons more questions. If I didn't get to your question today, we will get to it And if you have more questions in the meantime, we will take live questions during that call. We will make sure that you no, Rosemary, it's not on purpose. It's a technical glitch, which I will have fixed by Tuesday. So all is good. Actually, no, it is on purpose. It's just meant to breathe some life and fun into the webinar. So it's on purpose. It's not. All right, guys. So we're at time. I want to thank you so much for the engagement, for the excitement. I can see that a bunch of you guys have registered already for Calgary and Oslo. Congratulations to you guys that are going to be there. That's fabulous. You will absolutely be thrilled. I'm telling you right now, it will be one of the investments that you are most happy that you have ever made in your life. It is not exaggerating to say that you will, without question, see your life as before you came to the Speaking Academy and after. And by the way, if there's anybody on this call that's been through the program, tell me if that's true. Do you view your life as this is how things were before and this is how things after? And I think that that's a claim that's very easy for me to make. So there you go. Feedback directly from clients. So thanks very much, guys. Let's see. Do I have anything else here? Oh, also, the Facebook winners will be announced in the Facebook group for this webinar. So we have a private Facebook group for this webinar. The link is in the chat. I'll post it again right now. Oh, there it is. The link there. Jackie's just posted it. So we will be announcing the water bottle winners in the Facebook group. And please feel free to connect with other people in the Facebook group, ask other questions and so on. And as it turns out, I don't have to say goodbye because I get to say, see you later. I will see you on Tuesday. What a great idea. Caitlin, thanks very much for that. And for all of you who wanted to make it happen, I appreciate your excitement and enthusiasm. So that's it for now. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And one last thing. I want to know, is 2019 going to be the best year of your life so far? Is it? Because if it is, I want you to think about something. When should you start working to make it that way? Not on January 1st. Start now. Start getting your pace up now. Start thinking about your health now. Start thinking about the development you want to put yourself through now so that you can hit January 1st at speed. Don't be like the rest of them that make a bunch of rash decisions about how they wish their life would be on December 31st. Make the decision now. 2019 is going to be the best year of your life so far. What are the things you need to do between now and the end of the year to make sure it is? I know for some of you, it's coming along to our Speaking Academy. For others, it's coming and doing the WildFit program. For others, it's simply making some changes in your habits and rituals. For some of you, it means coming out to our Isaiah program, which I know a bunch of you are coming to. So I am super excited for all of you. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday.